It's 7:31. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I think first on the agenda, which isn't on the agenda, but is to welcome our new committee member.
Well, thank you.
Chris, glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the next thing is to approve meeting minutes from April 18th. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. The next thing on the agenda is to accept the meeting minutes of August 15th for review.
Move to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Great. Okay. So then the next thing on the agenda is to review the articles and motions and vote on a recommendation for the special town meeting. So I think we're here to talk about purchasing some land. Do you want to fill us in on what the scoop is here?
Sure. So, just to let everybody know, the meeting will be Thursday night. It's at 6 o'clock, and I will post you at 5:30. I always do that, so that way if there's anything last minute you need to discuss, vote on, talk about, you can. And you can do it without violating the open meeting law. We'll start the meeting at 6. Our town moderator cannot be there that evening, and so as a result, we're gonna need a town moderator. So what I'm gonna do is, just like I did at the annual town meeting, the selectmen asked me to get up and just do a real quick overview, so I will provide that quick overview as to what we're doing that night. Article 1, the selectmen are going to nominate the town clerk to moderate the meeting. She's done it in the past, she's well-versed, she's qualified. However, somebody else can still be nominated. Like, the hope is that everybody will be okay with Annie, because Annie will have already gone over this and know it, and somebody from the floor is gonna be cold, like they're not gonna know it as well, right? But if town meeting wants to nominate somebody else, they can, and then there has to be a vote. So if that happens, there'll be a vote. If not, then Annie will then take over as town moderator. Then we'll go to Article 2. So what we did is that we placed in your packet, and we plan on bringing at town meeting, is 2 aerial photos. One from the Board of Assessors, which shows the lot parcels, and the one in yellow highlight is the one in question. That is the one on Howard Street. It's 7.62 acres. Most of it, when I say most, 4.5, maybe 5 acres of it is fairly dry. There is some wetness towards the back end, as you can see. It is currently in 61A, but it is not being sold under the town's first right of refusal. Quite frankly, the family is doing us a favor at this point. So, real quickly, just let me explain what that means. Anybody that has over 5 acres of land can put their land in 61A, which means you get a vast reduction on your taxes. And it sits there, and then whenever you take it out of 61A, you have to pay back 5 years at full and fair. The town then has the first right of refusal to match the selling price. So if somebody sells it, like the next one, Bryant, for $1 million, we have a right to match it. We can't negotiate it, we can't do a different number, we just have to be able to match it. The one in Howard Street has not gone through that process. The reason they have not gone through that process is they're actually doing the town a favor. They do not want to see the property developed into either residential or commercial use. They have a bank appraisal for $710,000. So they know that if they sell it to a developer, it would be sold for at least $710,000. And they're going to try to deed restrict it at that point, but that'll be a negotiating point between them and the developer. But if they went to 61A process, then in theory, they would have a purchase and sale agreement for more than the $430,000, which we'd have to pay.
Right.
So the family's doing us a favor. They really don't want to see it developed. It was in the family a long time. Unfortunately, the matriarch passed away, and the family is trying to honor their family's wishes. So they have, the number has become $430,000 after some negotiation with the family. So they're really helping us out, to be honest with you. So there is no expected use for what we're going to use for it at this point. There are lots of ideas. I have ideas, members of the Board of Selectmen have ideas. But in the end, it's an opportunity near the center of town to buy 7.5 acres for relatively inexpensive money. There is the potential to put a ball field on there. That is one of the discussion points. It will house a ball field. It will also house some parking, but we would have to do some additional work to it if we want to get enough parking on it fully for a field. So we're not sure what we would do with it, but that is one of the considerations. But the thought process is that land doesn't come by that often. It's relatively inexpensive in comparison to what it's actually valued at. It's an opportunity for the town. The Board of Selectmen will be recommending to the town that we pay out of free cash. We have about $3.1 million of free cash for this year. And out of that, we'd be looking to spend $430,000 of it to purchase it. So there would be no interest. We would own it outright. And then at that level, then at that time, the selectmen would have to make a decision as to what they would want to do with the land at a further date.
So we would still have to borrow some.
Nope.
We only have 310?
No, we have 3.1 million. This is 430,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said 310,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's 3.1 million.
3.1.
So we have certified cash came in a little over 3.2 million, but 100,000 of it has to be set aside for opiate funds. And so we have about $3.1 million that is available.
And would the town get to vote on the use, or would the selectmen have full discretion?
The
to do
selectmen have
whatever
full
they
use.
want? Why is that?
So the selectmen have care and management of all town properties, but they can't appropriate the funds. So that's the checks and balances. So town meeting will have the legal authority to appropriate the funds in order to purchase.
Yeah.
And the selectmen then have the right to use it the way they want. But the reality is, most likely whatever they want to use it for in the future will have to cost money. So then you have to go back to town meeting and say, we need 300,000 or 800,000 or whatever the number is. And then and by default, town meeting gets to weigh in on it.
Yeah.
But if the town does buy it, and the selectmen literally just wanted to see it just sit there and raise daisies, then they could have that. And obviously, the board could change over time and make different changes or be petitioned or whatever. But that's not the scope on Thursday night. I'm sure the question's going to be posed, and the honest answer is that no decisions have been made as to exactly how we would use it, except that an athletic field is a potential use.
Are there any,
Open space though, based on the families.
I was gonna say, are there any caveats from
Yep.
the sale, from the,
So that's being negotiated right now as part of the purchase and sale agreement. So they would like to see it restricted to no development. They recognize that we may want to put a ball field on it, they're fine with it. They also realize that we may have to put a building for like restrooms, they're fine with that as well. But they do not want to see it, God bless you, they don't want to see it developed into commercial or residential use.
Okay.
Which clearly that's not the town's
Right.
intent.
Right. So I just want to make sure I have my bearings. It's kind of behind the post office, is that right?
No.
No.
No, it's behind the West Bridgewater Old Historical Society. So you're gonna cross Howard, cross 106, coming from here, you would cross 106, and then it's gonna be on the left-hand side.
Oh, okay.
Does it run all the way out to?
It runs all the way out to River Street. And so the thought process could be, is that it could have eventually an extension of War Memorial Park. But again, make it into its own park, make it just to a walking field, make it into a ball field, anything that pertains to that type of open space, I think that would probably be on the table for future
it's
discussion.
valuable to the town because it's in the center of town,
Yeah,
you know? And if the kids wanted to go play ball, it's not a long walk.
yeah.
You know?
And we do have a shortage of ball fields and things. you know,
Yes.
That we went through that all,
Yeah, well, you were on the recreation
Yeah.
committee, so you know.
right.
It's 2/3 vote, right?
It'll be a 2/3 vote, usually it's 2/3 because you borrow, but it's 2/3 vote because whenever you purchase land or sell land, it requires a 2/3 vote.
So what are the taxes they're paying on this land right now?
Yeah, so, I have that number and I forgot to put it in. So, I wanna say they are paying about $1,500 a year, and full and fair taxes should be around $9,000, so I think it was $7,500 or so.
So
But
it's
it's-
not like a huge hit with
No.
the tax, you know.
No, so, because again, I never wanna mislead anyone. So right now, staying in 61A, it's $1,500 a year. Obviously, if somebody were to develop it into something,
Yeah, then it's
Um,
different, yeah.
but there's gonna be great limitations as to what it could be developed into. So it's most likely the town could never see full and fair taxes on it. Because if they don't sell it to us and they sell it to somebody else that can't develop it, they're probably gonna keep it in 61A as well
Yeah.
and probably farm it.
Right.
Yeah, but is this highlighted area true
It should be.
on the map?
It should, that's off the Board
But
of
it doesn't even
Assessors.
come close to River Street.
Right,
Because I think there's an access point. So I'll have to verify with Tim. but
Is
I'm
number
talking-
14, the, whatever it
That's
is,
the Historical Society.
yeah. So it's mostly behind that, and it goes down, who's number 16? Is that the doctor's?
No, the doctor's 17.
He's 17?
Yeah.
Okay, so in essence, it doesn't come out to River Street except by access.
Correct.
Am I correct?
I think there's an easement there,
Sure.
but I'll have to.
I didn't see it, because I drove by.
Yeah, I'll have to,
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, I misunderstood, I apologize.
No, it's pretty long. I run by it all the time.
But I
so.
thought it was my understanding, but,
How much of it is wet?
Tim told me that out of 7.62, he thought around 4 to 4.5 to maybe 5 was not wet. So the difference,
And we
So say
mean
two,
wet
2.5.
versus wetlands or just wet,
just wet.
Just wet.
which we could fill.
There could be some fill, yes.
So do you know what's that 10? Is that an access point?
So that's right across the street from the police and
Mm.
fire, across from the War Memorial.
Yeah.
Just like that little lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that little one.
Correct.
So that's privately owned.
That's privately owned. Then all these are privately owned. 9 is undeveloped. And then you have a couple of little houses on 8, 6, and 7. And
You
then
know
there's-
who owns 17 by any chance?
That's the doctor.
The doctor?
That red house
He's
on the
retired,
corner.
right?
Yeah,
That's a big chunk of land.
yes it is.
Already has his Christmas lights up.
Now, what's the asking
does.
price?
He does. Sorry.
450,000.
God bless.
450?
430.
There's the pumpkins across.
430.
Oh, man, the other guy's great.
And we have that in free cash.
But he's a
Oh,
doctor,
we
and
didn't
he's
have to borrow.
retired.
No, we won't be borrowing.
What do folks think about this?
It's great.
Okay. Are we voting on these one at a time or both?
Whatever you guys want to do.
Let's do one at a time.
So I'll make a motion to see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate transfer from available funds to purchase the land, what's it called?
So-
Parcel,
So, Michelle, just to let, that's
Okay.
the actual article.
okay.
And the selectmen will make that motion. What they're going to ask you
Oh,
that
we're going
night.
to recommend.
And what's your
Recommend or
recommendation
don't
is.
recommend.
Yeah.
So it's your recommendation, either positive, negative, or something different.
I'll second it.
What
So
is
I'll
that?
make a motion to recommend.
Okay. Any discussion about that? All, you had a second, right?
Mhm.
So Cheryl made the motion, Mo second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
So the second parcel is on Bryant Street. This is also in 61A. It's about 23 acres. I don't have the specific breakdown as to what is wet and what is not wet. It's my understanding from multiple different sources that probably 13 or 14 acres for the most part is dry, and the difference is not. But again, please don't hold me to that.
I'm sorry, how many acres?
It's a total of 23.
23.
And somewhere around 13 acres or so are drier than not.
Yeah, I heard half,
Yeah, so that'd be about right.
approximately half.
The issue is that the wetlands aren't just on the edges.
Yeah.
They're throughout the property.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who's looking to buy this is a resident in town. So first of all, it's in 61A, it's for sale, and a resident in town has purchased it for $1 million. The intent of that person is to put 12 to 13 homes on the property. Again, there's nothing in writing, so if he wants to do more or less, I'm not telling you what he's gonna do, but I believe that's his intent. And he seems pretty sincere as to what he's looking to do. He wants to potentially put his primary house on there, build a couple of other homes potentially for his children as they grow older, and then be able to put 6 or 8 or 9 other homes that he would sell. In a parcel of the property that is nearest to South Street, is that he would like, right now, it's being farmed, and to allow that person to continue to farm it. So that's his intent, I believe, I hope I captured that correctly. And that's, he's, as a resident, he's sensitive to obviously the rural nature of the town.
So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways to get into the property?
So,
Is that what this outline means?
there are parcels, yes, there is access points to the roads. And also, if you look at, I think it's 63, that house, he is also purchasing.
Yeah.
Because this property belonged to the Gibson family.
Yep.
And that house also belonged to the Gibson family. Number 54, which is the 23 acres, that is in 61A. The house, assuming I'm correct at that number 63, that house is not in 61A. So the town does not have first right of refusal on it. So he is purchasing that house, which he doesn't need to go through the town to do, or wait for the town's approval. And then he is looking to buy this parcel, and it would be contingent on what happens at town meeting. So I think the question, or the answer is it by buying that house, it provides more access to that parcel as he wants to develop it in the future. I
What's
believe
that,
that's his intent.
57?
57, I
Is
think,
that 57 right here next door, the big lot next door?
Yeah,
um,
that's for sale now.
That's,
believe that-
the church.
Yes,
I believe
That
that's
is
the
not-
exact,
it's not.
that's not.
So this is the one that's down off of Bryant where across the street here, there's that little lot and here's the high tension wires. And right now there's a for sale sign on 57.
Okay.
So that's right down here is the old, this is where Grand Slam just went in, and that's that little lot. And it's been for sale since I think I moved into this town. That's why I thought it was that, and I didn't realize it was this one.
Where's Azak, to the right?
I think it's
It has to be.
that
Further
dotted
down.
line here where it's kind of blocked
Much
out.
further
I think
down.
that's Azak's there, and
Here.
this
But
part here.
this land's all being farmed right now.
Right now it is, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the thing that, yeah.
There's a bunch
Because
of-
that 63 that's selling right now, they were farming that. They did the cow corn and stuff up there. So that's why I kind of thought we were coming tonight to talk about the 57, so I was just kind of like, oh, okay. So,
My guess is 57 once, because that is, I'm sure, in 61A land as well.
sure.
So the town will then have an option to purchase or match,
Okay.
assuming the purchase and sale agreement gets executed and brought to us at a later
Got
date.
it.
So, yes.
Well, what would the town be doing with this land?
So again, we don't have any plans, the board doesn't have any plans for it. Some of the thought process on this is that there has been a lot of criticism levied to us as town officials and to the town in general, that we continue to see our small, or your small town get developed. There's more traffic, there's more of everything. And so I think the Board of Selectmen are not, again, I don't want to say the wrong thing. By the way, the vote was 2-1 to bring it to town meeting, to recommend to town meeting to purchase. So 2 selectmen, Jeff and Marcy, recommended that the town do purchase it, and Mr. Perez recommended that the town does not purchase it. So it was a 2-1 split vote. So I don't know what will be said at town meeting. I'm gonna guess there may be opposing viewpoints from the board to town meeting from that.
Right.
And it is my understanding that really Jeff's thought process on this is that there has been so much criticism levied against the town growing, too much traffic, too much housing, potential overcrowding in the future of schools, in that This is not the selectmen overwhelmingly pounding the table saying, we must buy this, but more saying to the town, here's an opportunity to buy it. If you would like to buy it, buy it. If you don't buy it and they build homes, you can't complain that the town didn't provide an option not to see further development in town. And this is, although I think that this is an opportunity for a town meeting, so that way town residents can voice their opinion. You know, here's an option for the residents to say, we want to have some control over the future of the town. And some are going to say, we don't want to see land get developed, to the best of our ability, not see future development, and as a result, we will buy it. And some people will say, for 10, 11, 12, 13 homes, we're going to allow development in progress to take its course. And whatever somebody votes, they just vote their conscience. And so I really think that was the spirit of the selectmen bringing it forward, is everybody has an opportunity, not just 3 people, but an opportunity as a town to be able to voice your conscience as to what you would like to see happen in the future with any of these available pieces of land.
Could the town sell these pieces of land if they wanted to in the future
They can.
for profit?
Yeah, I mean, because for example, I presume that Lincoln Street is going to come up because people are going to say, we have Lincoln Street, what are we doing with it? Look, I feel very comfortable, but again, I'm not a resident. All I do is offer advice. But I feel very comfortable that I honestly believe that West Bridgewater is a gem of a town in this area. There are no other towns that are close enough to Boston with as much open space as you have, immediate access to a highway, and still have a population under 9,000 people.
Yeah.
You guys, it really is a gem. I really mean that. And so by us owning Lincoln Street, the town has the option to be able to say at a future date to sell it. We can talk about that in 1 second. Or 2, is that every piece of property we own does not further development in town, unless the town chooses to allow that to occur. And there are plenty of other towns that do that. Easton and Dartmouth immediately come to mind, that whenever possible, they buy land just to sit on it. And at a future date, as it appreciates in value, potentially sell it off. Or they just have real control to be able to curtail development as they want it. So with Lincoln Street, it's 16 acres. It was permitted for 8 to 9 townhouses, so say 16 to 18 duplexes, 16 to 18 complexes. So that could be developed, the Russo property, and we own it for $600,000. And I have no doubt we could double our money, you know, in today's nature. So we did, so I think that we did a pretty good thing of buying it.
Yeah, for me, that was just like swapping one asset for another, land for cash, like that we had the cash, it made sense. We tried to do the ball field development thing, and the town just didn't feel like we had the funds at that time. That doesn't mean we won't have that in the future, we couldn't bring that back.
Well, and the
Or
old
sell the
adage
land.
applies that nobody makes any more land.
Right,
It's always gonna be worth more.
right, so we always thought, you
Greatest
know,
deal was the
we could
golf
always sell
course.
it.
So I'm just,
That was fabulous.
So I'm just using the analogy that Lincoln Street right now is sitting vacant, and the town owns it, and the town does have the right to be able to sell it at a profit if it so chooses, which may be a really good option in the near future. It could continue to just hold it and do nothing, and therefore control less development in the future. And so I think Bryan Street probably fits into that same category. And again, I think it's just the selectmen, or 2 out of the 1, well, all 3 of them actually recommended to bring it to town meeting. Is to let residents decide as to what you want to do. Now and there, we would be proposing to borrow. While we do have 3.1 million, and say we spend $4,000 on the first one, so you have 2.8. The board just didn't think that that would be a good use of capital to be able to spend $1 million out of that 2.8 million, knowing we usually spend it at town meeting in May, and we don't know everything that's going to be before us. And so they're looking to borrow. So I did include a sheet for you that you could see what the actual impact is if you were to borrow. Oh, I thought I did.
No, you do.
Okay. And that way you can see what the actual impact is that at $1 million, you know, if you borrow for 20 years or 30 years, you could see what the actual impact is. And that 490,000 is because that is what the average residential home is valued at, recognizing that some, if not many of you, have a home that's valued higher. So you could just, you know, do your math from there. But that is what it would be.
Is that 3.5%, is that realistic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the going rate is right now.
Because we protected our bond rating.
So,
Yeah, so we could, depending on what comes before the capital budget committee, you could always borrow it and pay it off, right?
that's correct. It'll, at a later date, we could go back to town meeting if we had the $1 million, so let's just pay it off.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But the elephant in the room, of course, is the school project.
Yeah, yeah. The money that we're gonna need for that, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, in the end, the town's gonna vote.
Yeah,
one way or the other, so.
yeah, but is it, you know, we have to, I mean, they call on us to sort of think about, does it make sense to recommend to buy this, knowing that we have some other stuff coming up, right?
I know, conservation voted unanimously to buy it. And
Oh, really?
Board of Assessors.
So all 61A property has to run through a couple of other boards before it reaches the selectmen. So the Board of Assessors, the Conservation Commission, and the Planning Board all receive notice, and then they make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Assessors and the Conservation Commission voted unanimously to support in purchasing it. And the Planning Board, by a split vote, I think it was 4-1, might have been 3-1, but it was not unanimous to support purchasing it as well.
Did they share their logic with you, the planning board?
They did not, we just received the letter, and I wasn't at the meeting. The letter just simply says what the vote is and what the recommendation is.
And you could sell the property anytime.
Very popular.
Mute button.
So all land in town can be sold at any time in the future, but it does require town meeting approval. So if we buy it, in the selectmen, say, 2 years from now, somebody says, we'll give you 12 million. The selectmen can't make a decision, they have to bring it to town meeting. If it doesn't get a 2/3 approval to sell it, it can't get sold. But yes, there's a mechanism to do it.
And you were saying there's 3.1, but the talk was you would rather send it out and use that money because we might need it somewhere else, is your thinking. Because I have to admit, but part of my concern is trying to, you know, that we can't just buy it out versus we would have to kind of finance it. For some reason, that's bothering me.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Again, opinion, right? It's,
Yeah.
and knowing we have schools and other things.
All you do is take a vote.
I think we should just, think about recommending it and leaving it to the judgment of the populace.
Yes, I agree.
They'll vote anyway. Town.
Right, yeah, they're gonna vote whether we recommend it or don't recommend it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do feel like, you know, it is, land is always an investment, and we do have the option, if the town needed the money, to sell it at some point, if the town decides that's what they want to do with it, right?
That's correct. Look, the committee is empowered to act however you want to. So, Chris, you're new, so I'm saying this, and I know everybody else has experienced this, but we do have some warrant articles that will go to town meeting that doesn't really have a financial impact, a lot of times say zoning or maybe a general bylaw change. And so the finance committee then will make a decision and they will just say refer to voters. We don't really have a real opinion on it, whatever you want to do. And so you have that option. But I will tell you, you're the finance committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
And it
think-
will affect finances.
And there's money involved.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do think that if you only say refer to voters,
Well, I
then,
wouldn't know.
I
Right.
do think that if I was a resident, I would say, well, I thought that was the purpose of you vetting it. So
Exactly.
again, do whatever you think is right, but I think in fairness, you probably, although it's maybe uncomfortable, you probably want to make a decision, because sooner or later at the stage, you're gonna be
Yeah.
asked what it is, and as a committee, you need to know how to speak.
Yeah, I
So-
guess I misspoke. What I wanted to say, I would like to recommend it and then wait and see what the voters say. I mean, that's all we do anyway. That's our job.
And the
Right.
tax impact is peanuts.
Um,
Really.
Small.
Yeah,
Well,
so, again, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think the tax impact on this one is different. Remember, on the other one, it was never going to be developed because the family, that's the family's wishes. Now, understand, if we don't buy it, they have the right to sell it. They could always decide, through negotiations, a developer might say, sorry, if there's restrictions, I'm not buying it. So they may eventually see it get developed. Because that'll be part of their negotiations. With us, we've agreed that we're not going to develop it
Right.
because we know that's the family's wishes.
Right.
So walk through that
This
first.
one, we would have tax implications.
Correct.
Because there would
Because-
be homes built and taxes assessed.
Because in reality, when you think about it, is that if this gentleman buys it and he puts on, I'll just use easy numbers, 10 homes, it's on a big piece of parcel. Those are not gonna be $400,000 or $500,000 homes. So just use easy math. If each one is $1 million home and you have an effective tax rate of $16 per thousand, that's a $16,000 tax bill. So 16 times 10, that's $160,000 a year. Now, there are expenses. There'll be children, there'll be other resources used, police, fire, somebody's gonna have to pave the roads. So that $16,000 is not all profit, and maybe not a weekly profit at all.
I was gonna
depending on
say
the
it's
children.
probably a negative return.
But I wanna make sure I don't say the wrong thing.
No.
This one here does have a different tax implication than the original parcel we discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I
Oh,
think you meant the
definitely.
$20,
I meant
right,
the
to buy it?
$20.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
No, that's how I took it, but
So-
you're
Now,
right.
Jeff
We
has
didn't
run a
talk
lot of
about
numbers that he said he's gonna promote the percent too, right?
So they're not seeing this on TV, but why don't you just explain what you meant then? Because they don't see the $20 and the $15.
Well, we have a sheet that was prepared for us to look at on borrowing $1 million and borrowing it at 20 years or 30 years. The impact was, find it.
In the middle.
The impact would be if we borrow for 20 years, it'd be about $20, and 30 years would be $15 a year.
On the
My
average
household.
assessment.
Average house assessed at
But the- Per house.
490.
So a quick question, so where did that value of $1 million come from? From the offer of the developer?
Yes. So the developer and the seller negotiated that price.
So that'd be the price that we would be held
That is,
to?
that is correct, because that's the first right of refusal price.
Okay.
So that's why in this case, we have a set number, because there is a bona fide sale between a willing seller and a willing buyer.
So then the value of that, based on potentially half of the acreage not being buildable, how valid is that value then? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Is there?
To build
do they
on,
have
so-
an appraisal,
You'd have to
like a
really, I
deal?
think, look at the
Right.
land and see how much is really wetlands and how much isn't,
Right.
whether you could replicate
So,
in a part of, another part of the thing and fill wetlands here, I'm not sure.
okay,
To my knowledge, there is no formal appraisal on it,
okay.
but what I would
That's
say is that the developer is a pretty seasoned developer, so he must have come to the conclusion it's worth $1 million. And obviously, he's going to incur costs developing, building, especially there's wetlands, there's gonna be lots of engineering costs. So whether or not he thinks that $1 million is high, low, or in the sweet spot, that I don't know. But clearly, he's made a decision that it's worth $1 million to him to develop it, and the sellers must have made a decision, they thought it was worth $1 million as well, or if they want to sell it. But I have no third-party appraisal on it.
Okay,
Yeah, the other one had an appraisal.
And the reason being was because
right,
in order for us to purchase it, there has to be an appraisal,
the first one.
because there has to be some formal third-party valuation placed on
Okay.
it. So we may actually end up doing our own appraisal, but we're not gonna start to spend the money if the town doesn't wanna buy it.
Because we're operating under first right of first refusal versus the 61A.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, yes. That's
Understood.
first one, we are not acting under the 61
Got
and
it.
first right of refusal.
Got
Is
it.
the only suggestion to the town gonna be that we borrow money for it, or are we gonna give it an option to buy outright?
So the selectmen will make the motion to borrow, but anybody is free to amend it to pay cash, and use free cash. Just again, you don't know what's in your future. And we
Right.
normally, like this past year, we spent $2.6 million at town meeting because we don't want to borrow for our other capital projects.
And we used some of that for the school budget, didn't we?
We use it just to lower the budget.
To lower the budget, yeah.
So,
Right.
to balance. But yes, to answer your question, Chris, anybody is free to change the motion. It would have to be approved at the so there would be so you would, make a motion to amend. Town meeting would then have to vote on the amendment, and then they would actually vote on the underlying article, whether or not they approve it or not.
So it is possible,
It is possible.
yeah. And then we'd have to deal with whatever comes up that we would normally use the free cash for when that comes up in a different way,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, so when I got here, like, we were
Good
borrowing,
choices.
you have to replace police cars annually.
Yeah.
And we were borrowing for police cars. And we really put an end to it, and the Board of Selectmen, and I made the recommendation, the selectmen agreed, that wherever possible, we were going to pay cash for all of our projects, capital improvement, because in that way, to Cheryl's point earlier, we went from an A1 bond rating to a AA+, which quite frankly, although there are a few, is actually unheard of for a town our size. Because you just don't have enough taxpayers.
Right.
So that's one reason our interest rates have come down, and we've shown a lot of really good financial.
Fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, we've shown some good fiscal management.
But we do have the big borrow thing for the water. We had a borrow for that, right, last time meeting.
So you have an approval for a borrowing article, they have not had to borrow yet, but yes, you have two, you have a $4 million and a $10 million authorization. We did receive state funding, or state approval, that in one of the projects for the $4 million will actually be at 0%. So hopefully so if the project comes in at $4 million, we should be able to just do it at 0%. It will still have an impact on your water rates, because you gotta pay the debt, but at least it's free interest. On the $10 million one, I don't think that they're there yet.
The water rates just went up, yeah. All right, so any more discussion on the land? No? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the purchase of that property in Bryant Avenue.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you, Mel.
And just to be clear, the recommendation is based on the motion as presented, meaning it's a borrowing
A
article.
borrowing article.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
I'm gonna go no.
Yeah.
And it's simply, I'm saying no simply because I don't like the borrowing act of it.
Yeah, so of the
I
seven.
think, whatever you decide, it's great, I'll go with that, but I just don't like the borrowing aspect. Not with the Howard School, not with the well coming, not with a couple other things that go on.
Okay, so we have 2 no's and 5 yeses. Okay?
All right,
So we got through 1, 2, 3. Oh, the fiscal year 26 budget session schedule. So I think folks remember, we had a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen last year for one of the, well, it was a few budgets, but one meeting. And I believe there was just a conflict of scheduling, if I remember right. That's why we did that. And I think we talked about maybe doing that, except for the school budget, you know, sort of for all the meetings in the next budget season. But
Isn't that backwards?
No,
Not to-
for all of
I
them.
so
I thought we wanted to do school all together so we didn't have to do it a few times, no?
The school,
Yeah,
we're
like,
gonna do together.
that's what I thought.
Oh, was that-
That's what I was asking.
we were only gonna do the school?
No, that's what I thought we were gonna do. We were gonna do them all?
Thought we did them all because it was much more cohesive and it just saved so much time for everybody else, for all the other boards.
So the only, so I think that's what we wanna talk about, right, is whether we wanna do
Yeah,
joint
school
meetings.
No.
Yeah, the selectmen asked me about it the other day, and I told them, you know, they would like to see, from what I understand, they thought that doing a joint meeting might be good. But it's a collective decision. This committee has to also, because you're an independent committee.
Yeah.
So you have the option as well, whether or not you would like to do it with the selectmen and have a joint meeting, or if you want to do it yourself, as you've been doing. Linda and I are gonna start putting together the schedule in December. And so we'll have to know, because we have to notify all department heads when they come in. So again, Chris, where you're new, what we historically do, the selectmen meet 2 Wednesdays a month. And so they have a budget presentation. They aren't voting whether or not they like the budget, dislike the budget. It's just literally hearing presentation. And the department head and or committee head or myself, because I'll do a handful of them, they just hear why they're asking what they're asking for. And then the following night, that Thursday night, the finance committee does the exact same thing. So that person comes in again, say the fire chief, comes in a second time, makes a presentation to the finance committee. And again, the finance committee isn't voting that night, good, bad, indifferent, they're just listening. And you go through that for the month of sometimes at the end of January, but February and March. And then in April, then you make a vote as to what you're going to recommend to the town meeting. And the selectmen take a vote at that point as well. So it almost always is the selectmen here on Wednesday night, and then the finance committee here is on Thursday night. So there's a discussion point about, instead of having 2 separate meetings, is to have one joint meeting. And so I think that's what we're discussing.
And that was to hear the people come in and present their case for what their budget was. And I think it's more efficient for the people who are presenting, for sure.
Agreed.
Totally agree.
Does it have any effect though on sort of our independence as an independent board? Would anybody view it as like, we're not really?
I think it could. I think it could.
Well, it's an information gathering, and
Right.
then we would vote.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it while
Separately,
voting, right? So
yeah.
we do
Right.
vote
No.
by ourselves.
Yeah, we
So, I
would
mean,
vote
I can agree
independently,
with that. I know there's some times where, David, you're going through things that we're just kind of do. I can see if there are folks presenting to, help with their time constraints as well, that makes sense. But I didn't know if we were going to do all of them together. I thought kind of more of just the kind of bigger presentation ones, right? But I'm good
Yeah.
with whatever to help save some time. But I do think we need to have independent meetings as well. We can't just go, hey, we're gonna do the selectmen all the time.
Right.
Because here's the other thing, if I remember correctly, Jeff's saying was, they still have other things that they have to do. So it's not just about the presentations at certain nights. They may be there a bit longer.
So that's true. So the Board of Selectmen's meeting, when they hear the budget presentation, it is their meeting. So they will handle a whole bunch of other items, and then as part of that meeting, they're also listening to budgets. When you get together, you're
It's
only
just
listening to
budgets,
budgets, unless there's other stuff you just want to talk about at that time. But for the most part, that is exclusively what you're doing in those meetings, is just listening to those budget presentations.
I think I'd be in favor of doing that with the school only, and the rest keep separate. That would be my thinking.
And why would you wanna do it with the school, just because it's such a big
It's
budget?
such a big presentation, and it's a question and answer time anyway. And then the selectmen could go on with their meeting, we're done.
I do, maybe worry about the, keeping the independence, so that's definitely something to consider. What do you think
I'd like to propose that we meet separately
separately on
the whole year.
So there's no
2 nights a week.
question, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I got the feeling last year that some of us didn't wanna speak freely, shall we call it?
when we met jointly?
Yeah. So I think it's time. I know it's difficult for everybody to have to, not us, but for all of the people who come in to present the budget, to do it 2 nights in a row, but
Yeah,
life goes on.
yeah. I mean, most of them don't really take
I did it
that
for
long.
15 years. I know what it's about.
Any other
What did the
thoughts?
selectmen feel, or haven't they really?
Well, they didn't take an official vote on it, but I do think that there's energy more to have a joint meeting than not have a joint meeting. One, again, I hope I'm saying the right thing, because they didn't take a vote. I didn't have an in-depth conversation with all 3 board members. I think there's some energy there because they felt that whenever we did it last year, it seemingly was fairly productive, well, good, it was productive. And also the Board of Selectmen oversee those departments. So obviously at some level, they're advocating that, hey, we really don't want to make the Council on Aging Director come in 2 nights to say the same exact thing. So I'm sure that that's part of the process. I hope I got that right, because again, I didn't ask that specific question, but I'm sure that that's part of their thought process.
What do you think, Sue?
I would be in favor of having the joint meeting again, because if memory serves me, that we ended up coming in later to the selectmen's meeting when they started their budget part of that. They held their regular meeting, and then I thought we showed up at a certain time when all the budgets came. We kind of went right through it I thought effectively. I don't think, I mean, I can speak for myself. I wasn't intimidated or prevented from speaking my mind on any questions that I had.
This is school.
I just thought, I just think that, that's separate, that's fine, but all the other ones, I thought it was just out of respect to the department heads, so they didn't have to come in 2 nights, especially if they're budgets that aren't, varied much from the year before. There's no big asks
So
or
you're
whatever.
leaning to have them all combined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have no objection.
Seems like we're a little split. How do you feel, Chris?
Guess we have.
Seeing as I've never done
He's
this,
never
I
done
it.
don't know if I really have an opinion, so, it's hard to say,
Yeah.
not knowing what to expect.
When will we have to really, now?
No, the issue isn't that it has to be done tonight.
Yeah.
We have to put the schedule together in the beginning of December. What it means though is if you didn't give me direction tonight, then,
We're not gonna meet before the meeting starts.
correct. So you'd have to
Yeah.
call a meeting just to finalize this discussion.
And then you bring it to the selectmen for their.
Well, look, I answer to the board, so I don't wanna say the wrong thing, but you are in your own committee.
Yeah.
So the selectmen can't force you to join.
No.
But I do think that they would prefer it. But again, you're your own committee. And so I think that knowing them, I mean, they would be I see no doubt that they would respect the wishes of whatever the committee chose.
Scott, what do you think?
I still, as I said earlier, I thought the school committee was great because they can do it once and it's a big night. There's lots of people, some people from the outside come in. I can see that being a good thing to get together. And it was, I thought, well done. I could see with some of those bigger, maybe the police, the fire, and say the Council on Aging, but I don't think we should do it all together. I think it takes away from our independence.
Yeah.
So that would be my opinion.
Yeah, I'm sort of leaning that way too. Do we wanna take a vote on that tonight, on, how we?
How long do we
Yeah,
have?
let's just make a decision tonight, just
Yeah.
then they'll know.
Well, is it
Right.
all, or
How much time we got?
is it all, is it mixed, is it none?
A week?
No, I mean, next week, and then the week after is Thanksgiving, and then it'll be December. So you have a couple of weeks. My guess is probably nobody wants to have a meeting
No.
the week of
No, we do
Thanksgiving.
not.
No.
And,
It's coming fast.
but whatever you guys wanna do, it's just,
We've already got a meeting the week of Thanksgiving.
no, we don't.
Yeah, we do. School,
No,
No, they
tonight.
canceled it.
after I left,
No, no, the 26th, we didn't have to, because whatever we were gonna do that night, we did this evening.
We did, yeah. You're off the hook.
well, I can go to Maine.
So,
There you go.
so if you think about it, right, if it's just really about presentations, I guess the presentations we could probably do with the selectmen, but the discussions and the
Oh.
conversations
Or separate.
have to be separate.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I agree with that. That's what we did, right?
But again, I think the bigger ones are the ones, so, I mean, I'm sticking with my original is, like I said, I thought it was the school committee when you first started talking about, that's what I was coming in, going, oh, we'll do the school committee together, but I do also understand that we wanna try to look out for other people, that they don't have to do it twice, but I also hear Jim, this is the way we've done it for years, so is it really imperative? But making the decision is a decision, so I mean, my suggestion is to do the school and do the rest of them separate, but that's my opinion.
I'm sort of going back the other way,
Me too.
saying if we're doing it for the school.
Yep, and I can
you know,
understand that.
So,
So do I have a motion, or do people need to sleep on it?
I think we need to make a decision to
I
make this an
agree.
efficient process.
So make a motion.
I don't care either way.
You don't care either way?
No, I don't.
I'll make a motion that we do the presentations from all the town
Budgets.
departments in joint with the selectmen, the budget proposals.
Okay.
Which is just a gathering of information, am I correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's,
Correct.
so the process is that, say the police chief, fire chief, whoever the
Instead
head
of
of the
twice,
department is,
yeah.
they come in, they sit
They
before
present
us,
what they want.
they give us all the numbers, we look at
Yep,
them,
yep.
they explain, oh, you know, this increases because we needed this or
You
that.
may
from
have
the
some
board.
questions.
If we can
Right,
ask
yeah.
all the questions we want,
But
we can have a
nothing-
discussion.
nothing,
And then we don't vote until all the presentations are made, and we have one meeting where we discuss them all, and then,
yeah. Understood.
And then make our recommendations.
yeah.
My last, though, comment on that before we vote is, you're gonna be in with the selectmen who are here, right? And we're just the board to make recommendations on financial impact. They are probably gonna have the floor more than us. Are we gonna be able to ask the questions that we want on financial responsibility with that? And again, I know we have it internally when we meet together separately, but I just wanna make sure that, to Jim's point, is like, make sure that you're ready to ask those questions in front of everyone, so that we're not kind of taking a back seat and just listening.
Meaning selectmen.
Yeah, meeting the selectmen, you know, it's kind of like when you're in a meeting with your mentor, right? You know, maybe, oh, they've got all the right answers, so I want to make sure that we're actually able to ask the
Oh.
questions that we want, because again, our view is, what's the best impact? It's more financial, again, we're just taking information and
And they
being
recommend
a
as well
suggestion,
to
right?
the town.
They're gonna look and say, oh, I don't want my people going twice a week because they'll get tired and da-da-da. I wanna make sure that we're making sure that we're not kind of being muted that way.
Yeah.
So that's my
maybe
last
to
statement.
fully vet it. and all
Exactly.
that,
I
yeah.
I think that the Board of Selectmen are all very respectful of everyone's
Agreed.
role and all of that. So that would not be one of my concerns, that they wouldn't make sure that the floor has been opened, or, you know, be persuasive enough so that you wouldn't feel comfortable to ask a question or whatever, but
Who
that's
would
just my
run the
opinion.
meeting, David?
we check.
Yeah, that's where it was a little,
The selectmen, it's their meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
We're guests.
Okay, so they just recognize any questions, that's all.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
but what I would do is, I would actually post it as a joint meeting.
Yes.
So what that means is that, let's assume the selectmen's meeting starts at 6:30, and the joint meeting starts at 7.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Then at 7 o'clock, you're all here. At 7 o'clock, Jan, as chair, will then gavel in, for lack of a better term, but she will say the finance committee is now in session. And if you have minutes, you have to approve your minutes as well at that time, like we normally do.
Mm.
And then there would be a presentation. I'm gonna guess the selectmen would then say, okay, we'll ask questions, and then turn it over to finance committee, and then you would ask questions. So my guess is there would be that back and forth. I think the only tricky part is if, although this doesn't happen often, but is that in the middle of the year, if all of a sudden you had something else that you want to discuss on your agenda. Every once in a while you have that. So then the selectmen would really be a guest to you guys as you further that. And then say your meeting ends at 7:40, they still have more business, you would then take a vote to adjourn. You can either leave or you can stay, and then you would not be there as a finance committee, you would just be there as residents.
Yep.
And the selectmen would conduct their business.
I mean, it's convenient to the department heads and you as well. So,
Look, the truth is, nobody benefits it more than me. Because I'm the one. But I don't want that to be the decision.
No.
Look, we've always done it this way. I know it's part of the job, and so I don't want my thoughts to be part of this at all for either the board or the
And you
finance.
said you did it last year with a joint, am I correct?
We did
We
it
did
just
one.
one meeting,
Just one
just one
meeting?
meeting
And
with
the
like,
concern
3 or
was,
4.
in your case, that you couldn't ask questions, is that what you felt?
who do we do it with?
Oh, it creates a level of comfort,
Okay.
you know what I mean? I think that we're better off talking to them on a one-to-one basis.
You take a
Yeah.
vote.
I feel it does keep our independence, and it gives us the freedom and time, like we won't feel time crunched or anything like that to like really ask any questions that we want.
And as you stated, we're only looking at 4 of, how many different budgets are there? 4 of them are the large ones, right?
Yeah.
Police, fire, the highway department, David's budget, we know it by heart,
Right.
and the school, and the school's the worst. And I don't even want to think about the school this year.
Yeah. I mean, we
That one I
have
would-
been
Huh?
really,
That one I'll do combined.
we've been really efficient with our time. What do we mostly need for about an hour, right?
Yeah,
Most of
I
the
mean,
time.
again, you guys are a very seasoned committee.
Yeah.
And so, since you know my budget by heart, or our budget by heart, the selectmen's budget, most of you know a lot about all the budgets.
Right.
Because Chris, one of the elements, especially in this type of setting, is that we don't really focus that much on the fact that the Council on Aging budget is $400,000. We focus more on the fact that it's up $30,000 year over year. So why? Because town meeting's already approved the $370,000 from the previous year. So town's already supported that. So really, what is the difference? That doesn't mean we can't ask questions from the ground up, but, we don't cut services in town, we certainly don't have too much staff, so it's fairly consistent, so you're really just looking at the increases.
And we haven't really had to, like
Now,
we've
the
been able
increases have
to,
been
yeah.
pretty minimal,
Yeah.
and so Jan is right, is that, very rarely, sometimes it takes 45 minutes to get through all the budgets that one particular night. Except for the school, it's not usually more than an hour.
Yeah.
Do
We
you
just
do
had
those
that one
separately?
year. What's
So
that?
does the Skype, from what I remember with Molly being on the school committee, they came in and did separately than other.
They come in, we do have other budgets usually that same night.
Just the
Small
school.
ones though,
Yeah.
usually, right?
Correct. So I would say that there's basically 3 subsets of budgets.
Yeah.
There are your traditional departments, council on aging, police, fire, water. Then you'll have your education budgets. There's actually 2. There is our local school district and there's
And
Southeastern
Southeast,
Regional.
yeah.
So what I've always done, which is what the culture of the town was prior to me, is I try to batch them together. And then, so on one night, you listen to both educational budgets. It also kind of gives you a flavor from an educational standpoint, because both superintendents come at it really from the same way, but with a couple of little differences, and you can see that. And then the third batch is smaller budgets. Planning board, zoning board of appeals, agricultural, and instead of asking those chairs to come in, they're volunteers, they're unpaid. I usually handle those budgets. There's usually minimal increases, if any.
And they're usually pretty small.
And so
Yeah.
I'll usually, correct me if I'll go through 8 budgets in about 1.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then if people have questions, I'll just answer them.
Yeah.
But, for example, the agricultural commission's budget is $900.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of discussion. It's been $900 probably for 30 years. So, so I go through those pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so those are usually, like in one night, It'll be water, fire, council on aging, and then small budgets. And then the same, duplicate that a couple of times, and then one night is education.
So I think we have a motion to do them together.
Yeah,
Does
might
that
as well
still
take a
stand?
vote.
Okay,
Doesn't matter one way or the other.
yeah. Do we have a second for that?
Moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of doing them all together? Got 3. Opposed? Still come opposed.
So there you go.
Okay, so then we need another motion, right?
Correct, so that technically that motion failed, so now you would move to a second motion.
Do we have a motion to do them separately? Okay. Do you have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of that proposal? Okay, so we have 5. I assume you two are
You
opposed.
changed.
We flipped them.
Go with the majority.
I was holding it down.
I'm independent.
That's right.
That's a good thing. Seems like we're gonna keep them separate.
So now what that means is, we will basically follow the schedule that we have historically followed.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so.
Okay, right?
I'm kind of feeling more comfortable with that.
Pass that down to Judy.
Well, at least you have an
Well, that
answer
way.
now. So that's good. You can do your scheduling.
We'll do the scheduling.
calendars.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Makes sense.
Is that for David?
David,
Yep, thank you.
All right, so, the next thing is, so just one more reminder that we have town meeting on Thursday.
6.
Town meeting is at
But we're
6.
gonna be there at 5:30.
Pick me up, you know. I would have forgotten.
I know. Think we
See you
have
at
to talk
5:30.
about it. So, do you have a motion to adjourn?
moved.
Second.
Third.
All those in
Seriously.
favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
That's the only full